Audio okay? Good afternoon, trustees, staff, and members of the public who are joining our November 18, 2025 Public Learning and Equity and Wellbeing Standing Committee meeting. Requests have been received from Trustee Marilyn Wright. This meeting is called to order. The chair recognizes Trustee Mamoon to do the land acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We affirm that we are all treaty people and acknowledge that the York Region District School Board is located on the lands of the two treaties. These treaties have been signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the First Nations of the Williams Treaties, who are the Mississaugas of Alderwell, Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Scugog Island, and the Chippewas of the Bosele, Rama, and Georgina Island, who is our closest neighbor and partner in education. To honor this agreement, we will take up our responsibility to be respectful of their traditions, knowledge, and inherent rights as sovereign nations. We will respect their relationship with these lands and recognize that our connection to this land is through the continued relationship with these First Nations, and we acknowledge our shared responsibility to respect and care for the land and waters for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Mamoon. Moving to approval of the agenda. Without objection, the agenda as presented shall be adopted. Is there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, without objection, the agenda is adopted. Declaration of a conflict of interest. At this time, the chair would ask any trustee who has a direct personal interest or indirect or indirect pecuniary interest in any matter being discussed by the board during this meeting to state the conflict and nature thereof. Seeing and hearing none, approval of the minutes. The minutes of the October 14, 2025 Learning Equity and Wellbeing Standing Committee meeting have been distributed to all trustees. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, as there are no corrections, the minutes are approved as presented. So we move to community delegations. Tonight, there are 2 delegations before the committee. The chair would like to take this time to remind the committee and our guests of our rules. All delegates and committee members shall use respectful language and shall not disturb the decorum of meeting. With respect to the decorum of this meeting, the chair would like to make clear to all members, delegates, and attendants that some of the following items will be considered by chair to disturb the decorum of the meeting. If any of the following occur tonight, the member will be removed and we will move on. First, members, delegates, and attendants may not attack the motive of the others. One may speak about why their position should be followed, but one may not attack the motive of others. One may not use foul language. One may not use hateful language that is mean to belittle, demean, or in any other way put down others. If one crosses the line, the chair will have them removed from this meeting. 2, the maximum amount of time for each delegate, in respective of the total number of delegates, is 10 minutes. A clock providing for the time as it elapses shall be on the screen. Members shall now speak after their time elapses. Due to the total amount of delegates tonight, the chair would like to remind all meeting participants to ensure that their remarks are as succinct as possible to ensure that all delegates are heard this evening. Trustees and student trustees in attendance at the meeting may ask questions of clarification following the delegate presentation. Debate or questions that are now clarifying the nature are out of order and shall not be permitted. When the delegation answer a question of clarification, they shall only answer the question that was asked. 4, speaking time for questions from each trustee and student trustee shall now exceed 3 minutes per delegate submission. Regardless of the number of delegations, members shall now speak after their time elapses. This means that if you are seeking to ask a question of a clarification, you only have one opportunity to do so. And please ensure that your question is concise enough to allow the delegation to respond. As is the custom of the board, the time including both the question and the answer from the delegate. And all delegations are reminded that the content of their meeting, including their delegations, is a part of the public record and will be accessible to the public and is a part of the public recording of this meeting. This evening, the first delegation before the committee is from Yaron Batten and Sarah Rabinovich. Yaron and Sarah, the chair recognizes you to provide your delegation. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you and good evening, trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. You have a copy of the prepared materials for reference, same information that's in the handouts provided. Now, that being said, we are here because policy and procedure 602, vetting external guest speakers, while well-intended, is fundamentally flawed in its current form. While the policy is meant to ensure that guest speakers support curriculum objectives and reflect board values, its implementation fails to achieve that purpose. In practice, the current process is inconsistent, unenforceable, and largely invisible to the public. There is no central oversight and no meaningful accountability when inappropriate or biased presenters are approved. On to Sarah.
Every day, we as parents trust that the board, we entrust you with our most important asset, our children. And it's expected that our classrooms are going to be safe, neutral, and responsibly supervised. You oversee a vulnerable population, so rigorous oversight is essential. The duty to protect the children cannot be left to the discretion of informal practices. It must be built intentionally into policy. Yet too often, we learn after the fact of who addressed our kids and what content was delivered, and the lack of transparency completely creates an unnecessary risk and a breakdown of the trust. Currently, principals hold complete discretion, while parents recognized under Ontario law as governance partners have no role whatsoever in these approvals. And the consequence is an imbalance that's played out in multiple schools throughout the board. At Elder Mills Public School last November, a presentation was canceled after parents discovered that the speaker's political and anti-Semitic social media content, this filled a gap that the board had missed. Parents were forced to take it to the board, take one of the board's most fundamental duty of care. They conducted a standard background review that every organization outside of the boards performs before permitting anyone to address their staff or clients. The school later apologized, acknowledging both the oversight and the failure to meet the notice requirements. A similar incident occurred at Rossstone Public School in March, where parental concerns were completely disregarded because, as the school claimed, the very political views, very public political views, were not, quote, what they were going to be talking about today. Parents' fears were realized when the presenter then proceeded to make a social media video at the school where they singled out a specific community and injected their personal political views into the school setting. Subsequent cancellation of all other schools underscored the risk and the acknowledgement of the harm that was done. Just last month at my children's school, I learned of several classes attended a presentation of an important but upsetting subject matter without prior notice to parents. The presenter would handedly meet all vetting requirements that we expect to see implemented, so the content is not the issue. In an email sent out to the families, citing a clerical error as to why it didn't go out, we looked at the letter and the date was still a couple days shy of the 14-day notice period. So the point here is not the quality of the presentation necessarily being the only issue, it's the process. It's not an administrative hiccup, it's a systemic policy failure that allows unvetted and at times partisan material to reach our children without adequate checks of transparency. And the lack of structure brings us to these two central questions. How are these decisions being made and who represents the parents, if anyone?
Thank you. And what's missing here is structural link between parents and decision making. The parental governance mechanism is a formal procedural way for parents to exercise their governance role with public education, beyond simply being informed or consulted under Ontario's Education Act and Regulation 612/00. Parents are formally recognized as part of the education governance framework through school councils and parents involvement committees, whose purpose is to enhance the accountability of the education system to parents. In other words, parents are just stakeholders. They're not just stakeholders, they're governance partners in public education. So when we say Policy 602 lacks a parental governance mechanism, we mean there's no structural way for parents to review, approve, or meaningfully influence who's permitted to speak to students. In practice, the community that sends its children into our schools every day has no guaranteed voice in deciding who stands before them. And this matters because governments without parental participation is not accountability, it's administration. And to put that imbalance into perspective, it took more oversight for two parents such as us to stand here for 10 minutes than it takes for a guest speaker to stand in front of children in your care for an hour. By contrast, although principals are provided a checklist, it is not a rigorous process. It depends entirely on one person's discretion and omits foundational vetting steps, including a review of publicly accessible social media content or basic background information. That reversal of scrutiny underscores why Policy 602 requires a clear parental governance mechanism. The highest procedural barriers should never apply to parents, while the lowest apply to those addressing our children. Another weakness is the scope of the policy. Thank you. Policy 602.0 currently applies only to in-class presentations during instructional hours, but harmful or biased content doesn't respect a timetable. After hours, heritage events, student club presentations, and off-site field trips all influence school climate and students' perception of safety. At present, that oversight effectively ends at the final bell. After hours and weekends, events are treated as facility rentals rather than board-sanctioned programming. That means a speaker who might not pass daytime vetting can still address students in the same building simply by appearing after 3:30 p.m. And when we send students off to school property on a field trip, the expectation of neutrality and safety must travel with them. Whether the presentation takes place in a gym, museum, rental hall, the moment it's organized, funded, and approved by the school, it still carries the board's implied endorsement. From a child's perspective, school is still school. When content is delivered in that setting, on-site or off-site, it carries the board's perceived legitimacy, regardless of the clock ticking on that location. Another loophole just significant is the omission staff professional development workshops. The people who train our educators shape what ultimately reaches students. If professional learning content is partisan or biased, that influence doesn't stop in the staff room. It filters directly in the classroom, into the classroom. If the policy's goals is to ensure that no content in our school is used to disseminate political biases, then its protection must extend to every context where students or staff are exposed to guest presenters.
All right, I'm gonna hustle. Parents have shown remarkable restraint, researching speakers, raising concerns respectively, and asking for nothing more than due process. Yet they've more often than not been dismissed until after harm is done. This is not about administrative procedure, it's about student safety and psychological well-being. If red flags are visible in a speaker's public profile, if anti-Semitic, racist, or political content is accessible online, then overlooking it places students at risk and undermines the moral authority of the board. Here's what reform could look like. Centralized vetting committee, a board level, we're gonna move on, public vetting database. This just seems common sense. Everybody should be able to see who's available. Mandatory social media review. I can't stress that one enough, but we're gonna move. Policy extensions. This needs to apply to staff PDs, after hours heritage events, student club presentations and offsite field trips, complaint pathways, clear and accessible ways for parents or teachers to raise concerns without fear of reprisal, and measures, okay. So the Education Act makes parents and school partners in governance, and the partnership only carries weight when it's applied to real decision-making, not referenced in policy documents only. Trustees have a responsibility to uphold the integrity of that relationship and ensure that parents are not treated as an afterthought in the process and the children that they've placed in your care. Families cannot trust what they are not permitted to see. And right now, the vetting process falls short of the standards required to meet that goal of transparency, accountability, and consistency. I want to be clear here. I'm not looking for a power struggle between parents and board. None of us are saying that. Real partnership is a shared responsibility and not competing authority. Strengthening this policy is how we move towards that partnership. One built on clarity, not confusion, on trust, not surprise. It's how every family, regardless of their background, can be assured that their child learning environment is safe and balanced and accountable. By putting a parental governance mechanism in place and strengthening oversight, the YRDSB can set that provincial standard. We can be leaders in this. In a partnership where parents, that is transparent, structured, and rooted in the duty to protect children we entrust to you every single day. Thank you for listening to us and your commitment to that safeguard. We appreciate the opportunity to speak here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Trustees, are there any questions of clarification? So Trustee Pamela? McCarthy?
Just briefly, I'd like to say thank you. I guess that's not exactly clarifying, but I do want to say thank you very much for bringing this to our attention and for your dedication to the students and all of the students and your contributions to us as a board. We're not perfect, but we do try to be, and we do rely on parents like yourself who are involved and engaged. So thank you very much for that. And I guess the only clarified question I have is, it was very all-encompassing and very informative and very well said, everything, but is there anything, you have 2 minutes and 20 seconds, is there anything more specific that you would like to bring to our attention? And if there isn't, then that's okay, because it was quite comprehensive. So thank you very much.
I mean, there's...
I think the main thing here is sticking to the process, really, at the end of the day, is the most important thing for us as parents. And as stakeholders for everyone in this community, I think that's important for everyone to stick to whatever processes we have objectively, without any biases, and without any additional
I know what I want.
indoctrination of anything, of any potential harm down the road. We want to avoid those kinds of scenarios.
So one thing that I get asked a lot is, wouldn't adding more vetting cause more and more delays? Like that's the main thing, is if we add more rules, it's gonna cause more delays, it's gonna be more of a problem. And the reality is that with every school, every principal getting basic instructions, we're getting 200 different views of how things should be. A centralized process that is run efficiently will take less time. We'll get more things available, and we'll get my kid out on more field trips. My kid doesn't get field trips anymore because the principal is overwhelmed and terrified to make a mistake. If you have a centralized process that actually does its job and makes it so that there aren't these oversights, we don't run into these gaps where it took 30 seconds for a parent to go on Instagram and find vile things said by the person, and we don't then have to cancel trips that took forever to plan and whatever it was. We could have things that were already set in place, a list they can pick from. My kid can go on stuff, and the principal isn't scared to make that decision.
And I just want to add that this is, by doing this for the board, you guys set the precedent, right? Like, you could be setting it for other boards as well to look at, and I think that's critical. So, I mean, I hope you take what we put out there as seriously as possible, because it will help. It could only help, right?
A gentle reminder that members must ask questions during this time, not making speeches. This question of a clarification cannot be used to extend the time of the speakers. They are intended to ask questions of a clarification only. So we move to Trustee Mamoon. Thank you for the question for clarification.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Thank you very much, first of all, bringing up this to our attention. I have one question, or actually a couple of questions, which I'll try to have within my time. First of all, this policy is currently under review by the board in a cyclical timing. Have you sent this feedback to the committee, to the normal process?
So we applied to speak to this in 2020, early 2024, I think, with very similar information. So yeah, all this information's been sent multiple times. We were denied, and then we applied again.
Thank you,
so
but
yes.
that does not, my question was specifically, have you sent this feedback to policy committee?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Second question, sorry. On your slide where you're saying expanding the scope, are you suggesting that where school board rent our facilities to other organizations, we should also be overseeing the process that who is coming there and who is not? Is
Yes.
that what your suggestion is in this?
I'm suggesting that when it is an event that, if it's rented for a hockey game, I think we can make a distinction between renting for a hockey game and renting for speeches, where we invite students and hang posters in the school for an event happening at the school, that we can make a distinction between that. And yes, I do think that we need to be on top of that, because as far as kids are concerned, school is school. It's at the school approves this.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it from me, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So trustees, Trustee Cohen, so please ask a question for clarification.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you so much for your very thorough presentation. You've really thought about many aspects of this vetting process. I wonder if we could have a copy of what you read, because you have so much detail there. I think it would be worth reviewing.
Happy to. When we timed this, it was 9.5 minutes every time. 9.5 minutes every time. And this time, we got to 2 minutes, and I still had about 4 minutes to blow through. So I absolutely had to skip a few points, and I would be happy to share that.
Thank you very much. That would be helpful.
Great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So trustees, are there any questions of clarification? So seeing and hearing none, so without objection, the committee shall receive the presentation for the information. Is there any objections? So without objection, the presentation is received for information. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And sorry, just wondering, is there a recording of this available on the?
I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah, on YRDSB. Okay.
Yeah.
So all recording will be accessible at the board website after the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So this evening, the second delegation before the committee is from Michelle Johnson. Michelle Johnson, the chair recognizes you to provide your delegation. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I'm here tonight as the parent of a grade 9 student who is enrolled in the arts program at Huron Heights. I'd like to address potential changes in school transportation for the Huron Heights Arts and French Immersion program from a school bus to a public bus route. While I deeply respect and appreciate the role of our public transit system in serving the broader community, I believe this change is not in the best interest of our students, and I would like to share a few reasons why. The first is that the school transportation is fundamentally different from public transportation. School buses are designed for student safety with trained drivers, controlled boarding, and routes aligned with school schedules. Public buses, while excellent for general commuting, cannot replicate these safeguards. Students deserve transportation that prioritizes their security and their well-being. As a parent, I have trusted the York Region District School Board with the safety and security of my children since junior kindergarten. All three of them are lifelong York Region District School Board students and have relied on student transportation services since they were in JK. This positive experience has allowed us to confidently support our daughter in pursuing an Arts Huron education, knowing that the same transportation system would get her to and from school safely from Georgina to Newmarket. The second reason is that this has an unequal impact on specialized programs. This transition does not affect all programs equally. It creates an imbalance that undervalues cultural opportunities compared to athletic ones, limiting choices for many students. If public transportation is replacing school buses, it should be across the board for all programs, not on a selective route-by-route basis. In the absence of school transportation, many students might not feel supported to enroll in specialized programs, which is an incredible inequity. Moving closer to these specialized schools is rarely an option. Thus, as families move further north for more affordable housing, special program opportunities for their children become out of reach. I'm just gonna digress a moment on this note here. I have a career in the arts and culture sector, and it's a widely known fact that sport often receives more funding out in the real world. I think it would be a tragic lesson for our students to learn at a young age that their peers in specialized sports programs are still having access to school busing while they are taking public transportation to their specialized arts programs. Additionally, this change could place a burden economically and emotionally on families. Moving to public transit shifts costs to families, whether through fares or additional time and resources to ensure safe travel. For many households, this is an added financial and emotional strain, and it could impact participation in school activities as well as specialized program participation. I know for my family, if this change does occur, we'll have to adjust our work schedules. I don't feel comfortable with my 14-year-old daughter taking a public bus route across multiple communities. Regardless if there is a financial burden or not, there will be certainly an emotional one as a parent worrying about the safety of our children. And that leads me into my final point about increased vulnerability when public transportation spans across multiple communities. I know it's common practice within, say, Georgina, for example, for students attending Keswick High School to take York Region Transit from one subdivision to another. In this instance, we're talking about students moving from Georgina into Newmarket through the public bus system, passing through numerous neighborhoods, unfamiliar environments, and increased risk. Public bus stops are different than school bus stops, and it's a bit of a frightening situation to just trust a larger community of public transportation with the safety of our children, especially at such a young age. School buses offer a controlled, predictable setting that minimizes these vulnerabilities. In closing, I really want to state that I'm not trying to diminish the importance of public transit. I have family that rely on it. Public transportation is essential. It's a very important service. I do believe that school transportation serves a unique purpose. It ensures the safety, equity, and accessibility of education for all students. I'm urging the board to maintain dedicated school transportation for these students at Huron Heights and to protect that as a priority and as a future for these young children. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Trustees, are there any questions of a clarification? Okay, so seeing and hearing none. So without objection, the committee shall receive the presentation for information. Is there any objection?
Yes, I would like to extend or put forward a new motion if possible.
Multiple of the permitted motion under Appendix E of the bylaw are able to be adopted at one meeting. At this point, the chair will process the first one. As is the custom of the board, then members may move their motion. So thank you. So without objection, the committee shall receive the presentation for information. Is there any objections?
Yes, I object.
As there is objection, is there any debate? Okay, so Trustee Butterworth, you can start to proceed.
Thank you. So I would like to actually say that we need more than just accepting this for information purposes. I would like to suggest that we refer this to the director for follow-up, and also that we request an information report from staff regarding the service that exists and what will be coming in terms of what will be offered and the numbers of students and so on involved. So I guess it's twofold.
So as the chair said, the member can move that motion. It just must occur after this motion is dealt with. So continue to debate and see if any objection here. So the question is on the adoption of the motion that the committee received the report for information. So is there any debate here? So Trustee Mamoon, can you speak? So we need
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to, through you, request some clarity. Through you, I would like to request some clarity on the motion honorable member have made. Is that my understanding is that when we're saying that we're receiving a proposal for information, it really means that we are forwarding it to staff and then to have an action on it. But I think that in this case, and correct me if I'm wrong through you, Madam Chair, is honorable member is requesting that there should be a report from, it should be sent to the director's office, which in my view, it will always be, but then we are specifically asking for a detailed report that what would be done to this particular proposal. Is that?
So since we already have a presentation, so we need to have the motion to see if the presentation we can receive for information. So after we receive the presentation as the information, then we can dealing with other suggestion and promotion motion. So that since the delegates already do the presentation, so we need to first make sure the presentation is received for information.
Okay, so we receive our information, that's out of the door.
Yeah, if we get that motion approved, then we can move to, Trustee Butterworth's, the new motion, yes.
So let's get the first one done, right? That's already done.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, so
Okay.
yes, if we don't have any, without objection, the presentation is received for information. So thank you. So let's move to another motion which proposed by Trustee Butterworth. So Trustee Butterworth, you can start to talk about your motion.
So I think, do we need clarification? Or were you okay? We good? So I would like to move that the presentation be referred to the, I guess I'm asking for two things. Can I ask for two? I'd like to move that the presentation be referred to the Director of Education for follow-up with the delegation by assigned staff, and I also move that the committee, request an information report from staff that would be presented at a subsequent meeting regarding this delegation about the service that is currently existing, which I think we all need to be aware of that. What's the potential going to look like in terms of service with YRT and so on, how many it's going to affect and so on. So I think we need to have all of the facts in front of us to be able to make this decision. So I'm moving for the two things, please.
Okay, so without objection, so the motion which proposed by Mr. Butterworth shall be adopted. Any objection? Seeing and hearing none, so without objection, the motion proposed by Trustee Butterworth has been adopted. So thank you. So a report shall be forthcoming and the delegation is sent to the director for follow-up. So thank you. So move to next agenda item. So board reports. A, Human Rights Office, HRO Annual Report 2024-2025, and Annual Accessibility Report 2024 to 2025. Before the committee is the Human Rights Office, HRO Annual Report 2024-2025, and Annual Accessibility Report 2024 to 2025 report. The chair recognized the Senior Human Rights Advisor, Chloe Lester, to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. So the first report that I'm going to be going through is the Human Rights Office Annual Report for the last school year, 2024-2025. When I refer to various pages, I'm going to be referring to the pages at the bottom of the PDF, not the PDF number, just so you're aware, depending on what you're looking at. So beginning on page 5, I want to highlight the amount of files or different complaints or concerns that were brought to our office. There were 220 new files, which is an increase of 16% from the previous year. The Human Rights Office addressed the files in various formats. So whether it was providing guidance and information on human rights, initial consultation and fact-finding, early resolution and investigations, or referral to the appropriate department. At the top of page 6, the Human Rights Office promoted and offered different opportunities for consultation. And this has been a new initiative over the last few years that we have offered as an office to school administrators, department managers, and senior leaders. We definitely saw an increase in the number of consultations, which effectively doubled from the 2023 to 24 school year to last school year. When we look at the different complaints that were filed, the majority came from parents and guardians. And race and disability were among the highest reported code grounds to the Human Rights Office. Most disability-related complaints came from staff and parents and guardians. At the top of page 7, we have the files by the constituents. Most of the complaints were filed by parents and guardians. When we look at the different human rights education outreach the Human Rights Office has conducted over the last year, we engaged with both students as well as staff. And so we're going to highlight some of those things that our office has engaged in. When it came to students, on the top of page 8, we have continued with the Human Rights Ambassador Award, which recognized 4 secondary students that were honored as recipients for this award for fostering culture of inclusivity and respect for human rights in our schools. So the 4 recipients were Kiao Tang, Darlene Juleman, Sharia Goldring, and Hamza Kokalawala. So that was really exciting to see them receive those awards. When we, more type of presentations that we've done with the students, we also delivered a human rights presentation for secondary law students. So these were grade 11 and grade 12 secondary students. And we presented to more than 450 students across 10 different secondary schools. When we look at the various professional development that we have incorporated into professional development style sessions with staff, those are on page 9. And the Human Rights Office delivered 20 different in-person training sessions or online training sessions to various senior leaders, school administrators, elementary and secondary school teachers, as well as department and team managers. 3 different trainings I'd like to highlight is a new training module that was launched last year in partnership with Human Resources Services and LD&E, Leadership Development and Engagement. It was a new training from conflict to connection, and this is about mediation and restorative practices. And we held 3 of those training sessions with more than 100 participants. And then our other training modules that were launched last year was on our Connect to Learn online platform. This was module 1, neutralizing unconscious biases in our workplace, and module 2, neutralizing bias, which is strategies for fair and inclusive hiring practices. So these 2 modules are taken by school administrators and hiring managers before they conduct a hiring. And this is also a yearly refresher they are required to do for large centralized and recruitment drives. So there are 232 managers and supervisory staff that have completed these modules. When we look to page 10, the Human Rights Office is engaged in a variety of committees and networking groups. And these are quarterly and monthly meetings that we collaborate with other human rights practitioners or equity liaisons within York Region or other school boards. Last but not least, our office is responsible for the accessibility portfolio, and we'll get into some details regarding that when we go through the accessibility report. Would you like me to go through the other report, or do you, before questions?
So you can continue.
Okay, perfect. So now I'll present on the annual accessibility report, and this really is the entire school board's efforts in promoting not only inclusive education and working and learning environments, but also how we've improved in accessibility for our school board. So beginning on page 6, this annual report describes all the measures that YRDSB has taken in the 24 and 25 school year to identify, remove, and prevent barriers to accessibility. This school or last school year, there were 4 accessibility advisory committees held, and those meetings are approved and posted on the accessibility webpage. We also have published this annual report, which is not only a legislated obligation, but it is something we also post online for all constituents and community members to see as well. When we look at the accessibility compliance training, which is at the bottom of page 6, all new employees are required to complete accessibility and human rights training. And so for last school year, there are 3 different type of accessibility type trainings, and depending on what occupation you have within the school board is dependent on how many courses you're required to take. So everybody is required to take accessibility standards for customer service, and we had approximately 1,400 new employees take that. Accessibility awareness for educators is specific to educators, with just over 1,000 new employees who have taken it. And everybody is required to take Accessibility and Human Rights 101, with approximately 1,500 new staff who are required to take it. We also look at different training opportunities beyond compliance, and if you look on page 7, you will see 4 different training sessions with multiple sessions that were taken, and these training sessions shift towards professional learning beyond compliance through a more customized or individual sessions. We're going to focus on the area where it says 2.0 customer service standards, which is again on page 7. We had the Ministry of Education approve approximately 1,500 SEA claims for the purchase of assistive technology for students with special needs. There was also 6,195 sessions referring to students receiving one-on-one training of high-incidence software, and 483 sessions for teachers receiving training on low-incidence software, both one-on-one and PLC formats. The board continues to use hearing assistive technology to provide more direct speech or audio signals to users. They're done through various means like digital transmitters and digital receivers. Also on page 8, we will see there's various vision assistive technology, and they can be provided through MacBooks, PC window laptops, and other vision assistive technology. There's increases, continued ongoing resources for student services and support when it comes to blind, low vision, and deaf blind services. They continue to provide supports, and you will see the various supports on pages 8 and 9. There's also continued supports for students with the deaf and hard of hearing services. Moving on to the information and communication standard, I really want to highlight a really huge achievement from the board, where they launched 217 individual new YRDS school websites. It was a huge achievement to launch those websites and ensure that all websites were designed to conform to the WCAG 2.1 level AA standards, which is a type of accessibility standard for these websites. And what is continued achievement for the board is anybody who ends up contributing to these websites are all receiving support and training so that what we publish is more accessible web content for these websites. When it comes to board videos, the pre-recorded videos continue to incorporate open captions with also these accessibility requirements. Looking to page 10, 11, and 12, These are 27 projects that are either scheduled and or completed accessibility projects within the school board. And so you will highlight the various schools that is being done, the description of the work, their status, as well as the costs associated with it. And those are over 3 pages. Moving on to page 13, the Human Rights Office also continues to have a reporting tool called Barrier Buster, where staff and students, as well as community members, are able to report issues with access to accessibility. Most of the different files or concerns that were brought to our attention related to accessibility in the built environment. At the bottom of page 13, we'll focus on different employment standards achieved. And there were disability management supported 3,865 employees throughout last school year. Some of the files were carried over from previous years, but they had an addition of 1,721 new files. You will see on page 14 that they provided supports and accommodations, also using various assistive devices. When it comes to candidate support and job postings, the Human Resources Services continue to review job posting to ensure not only that bona fide occupational requirements are listed in the job posting, but and are maintained. Sorry, not only the occupational requirements, but also the educational credentials are included to reduce any barriers to entry. They continue to support new candidates through accessible virtual recruitment as well. And there are various other supports highlighted on page 15 as well. I want to highlight to the board that and the trustees that YRDSB was randomly selected for and successfully completed a desk audit by the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility. And so this audit, we required to produce documentation, links to certain policies in about 5 main areas. The ministry asked us specific questions having to do with our multi-year accessibility plan, the maintenance of accessible elements, training, accessibility feedback processes, employment standards, as well as the design of our public spaces. Last but not least, on page 16, policy 407 was updated and went to final review. And so that updated policy continued to strengthen the board's obligation to consult with persons with disabilities, as well as updated procedures for service animals for parents or guardians. And the revisions are now complete and available on YRDSB website.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, staff, for providing this report. So, trustees, are there any questions? So, the chair recognizes Trustee Mamoon to ask question.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, through you. These are more of some clarification questions I have. So since there are 2 reports, I hope that I can get through all my questions or clarifications. So first of all, on your first report, annual report, it does mention on page 7 that we've seen 16% increase, right? And if you look at that, majority of these numbers, or the numbers which are higher, are reported by the staff, while other ones remain within the same range as previous year. I'm just wondering, it could be a good sign that more and more staff are being trained and now they know how to report it, how to bring up the issues in front? Or there's another thing which is not being highlighted in your view? What could be other reason if it's not just the more accessibility to the training and everything?
Meaning who is filing the complaints?
Yes,
The
staff.
graph on page, how there's been an increase in staff reports.
Yeah.
I don't really have an exact explanation for why there is an increase in staff complaints, but what I would say is that we've also seen an increase in our consultations from principals and managers, and so there are sometimes staff-to-staff conflicts that we are consulting on that may have concerns regarding policy 240, which is the human rights policy, so that could be a reason for why there is an increase.
Okay, so, but the point I'm highlighting is that because the training is being delivered through you, Madam Chair, the training is primarily being delivered to the staff, and that's why I see on page 7 again, going back to your graph, the visible increase is on the staff reporting these incidents. So I was just trying to correlate it, but that's fine. On the accessibility report, I saw that there's 4,000 plus number was quoted for the CR training for the students. I understand the accessibility report is our collective effort as a board. Just wondering that who delivers the CR training? SEA equipment training? There were 4,195 number was quoted, right?
Sorry, these sessions, are you talking on page 7? The 6,195 sessions? Maybe I can have some assistance?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So those were the 6,000 training sessions that we had for our students who received the special education allocation equipment. So we have training sessions. I believe that was what your question was.
Yeah, my only
who
question was
provided-
who delivers the training, right?
Thank you. We work in partnership with LearnStyle, who is the preferred vendor through our RFP process, who provides that training in schools for students and staff and parents.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, just last question on that accessibility report, section 4.1. Just curious that who prepares that list of the, we saw the $1.6 million spent last year or 2024, 2025. So 2 questions. Who prepares the list? Is that prepared by somebody who is doing an audit on the building, that what needs to be done in certain buildings? Because this does not have the list of all the schools in the district. And flip side of that is that question through you, Madam Chair, to the staff is that where that budgeted line item of 1.6 million shows up, does it go under property enhancements, or what category this will go under? So those are 2 questions.
Okay, so any answer?
Through you, Madam Chair, the list is provided by our facility services staff and reflects any of the renewal projects that are done as part of our AODA efforts.
Yeah, thank you. So trustees, are there any more questions? Okay, the chair recognizes Trustee Cohen to ask question.
Thank you, Chair. I was really impressed that we are training principals on, it sounds like conflict resolution and mediation. Is our goal to train all of the principals eventually so that they can handle some of these conflicts within, rather than putting all of this pressure on your department?
I think it's been, so I would say yes, it's a strong recommendation. We are trying to provide various trainings. Even this school year, we have an additional 3 sessions, and we've created various ways of, we've even split it into 2 half days so that it can appeal to more administrators, especially with time constraints that they have. And we will continue to look at various training opportunities and training dates so that it can appeal to the majority of the administrators.
Okay, thank you. So trustees, are there any more questions? Okay, so seeing and hearing none, So we move to the recommendation contains on page 11 of the agenda package. Is here for adoption. That the Learning, Equity, and Wellbeing Standing Committee, LEWSC, is asked to review and approve the following 2 annual reports for publication on the board's HRO website. So 1, HRO Annual Report 2024 to 2025, and Annual Accessibility Report 2024 to 2025. Without objection, the recommendation as a read by the chair shall be adopted. Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing none, so without objection, the recommendation is adopted. Moving to B, yeah, thank you. So moving to B, proposed secondary school French immersion boundary change. Before the committee is the proposed secondary school French immersion boundary change report. The chair recognized the Associate Director of Education and Chief Financial Officer, Service Excellence Vidya Maharaj, and Senior Manager Planning and Property Development Services, Don Adams, to present this report. Thank you.
Evening. I'm here this evening with Trina Sprayson, Manager of Accommodation, to help me present the next 4 reports. We'll start with Report B, Proposed Secondary School French Immersion Boundary Change. The report starts on page 41, where you'll see the recommendation. The existing boundaries for the French immersion schools impacted, which is Langstaff Secondary School and Thornley Secondary School, can be found on page 44, and what we are proposing can be found on the map on page 45. In 2011, when the French immersion in southern Richmond Hill was at its peak, we had to divide the French immersion program at Langstaff and start a new program at Thornley. Here we are in 2025, and French immersion participation at both elementary and secondary in South Richmond Hill has decreased, and it is time that we can merge the programs back together to one site. This past year, the French immersion enrollment at Langstaff is 45 students, and at Thornley is 263. We are proposing for September 2026, and we started this process in the spring of last year, in the 2025-26 school year. We started with meetings with the administration in the spring, and then trustees impacted. We had school council meetings at the impacted secondary schools and the elementary feeder schools in October, and we also held a public meeting on October 22nd. 3 families arrived, and we spent time with them to discuss the proposed boundary, and their main questions were, how are they impacted, and also, is this a sure thing? So we are pleased to present with you the recommendation on page 41, merging the French immersion boundaries of Langstaff Secondary School and Thornley to Thornley for the 2026-27 school year. That would be the intake of grade 9 students. Existing French immersion students at Langstaff will stay till graduation, and we will grow the program year by year at Thornley. And happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, trustee, are there any questions? Okay, seeing and hearing none.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll ask Trina Sprayson to join me for the next report C.
But we do have a recommendation here, so maybe I need to finish that part first, okay? So the recommendation contains on page 41 of the agenda package is here for adoption. We shoved that the York Region District School at the current French immersion boundary for Langstaff Secondary School to the Thornley Secondary School French immersion boundary Appendix A, effective September 2026. Beginning with grade 9, the Langstaff Secondary School French immersion program and Thornley Secondary School French immersion program will be combined and located at Thornley Secondary School. Without objection, the recommendation as read by the chair shall be adopted. Is there any objection? Okay, seeing and hearing none. So without objection, the recommendation is adopted. Then we're starting to move the the next one. French immersion primary dual track change. Before the committee is the French immersion primary dual track change report. Is here for our information. The chair recognized Associate Director Vidya Maharaj and Senior Manager Don Adam to present this report. So thank you. So
Thank you, and I'll have a Manager of Accommodation, Trina Sprayson, make this report.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. Through you, Chair. So in your agenda package, you're going to find an annual report that we bring forward to the Learning, Equity, and Wellbeing Standing Committee in the fall of each year to present information about any potential upcoming changes for French immersion primary dual tracks in our system. Just a little bit of background, the board began implementing primary dual track locations starting in 2013 across the system. We currently have 11 of these in our board. So the primary dual tracks, that's been able to allow the board, we use various configurations for French immersion at different locations, and that's how we've been able to accommodate the growth in French and any students who want to attend French, and it helps us avoid lottery systems and capping. The primary dual track system has also allowed us the board flexibility to address community needs, and primary dual tracks can be created or collapsed depending on enrollment and space in the area. So this report has an appendix that references two primary dual track school areas where we're looking at a potential modification because of enrollment changing patterns. There's space that's been freed up at some of the junior intermediate French immersion schools. So one of the schools referenced there is Viola Desmond, is a primary dual track that serves grade 1 and 2 currently, and Romeo Dallaire serves grade 3 to 8. Both of the programs are, Viola was started in 2019 when it opened, and Romeo Dallaire started in 2015 when it opened. And now there's more space at Romeo to take back a grade. The second area we're looking at is York Hill and Woodland. York Hill started their primary dual track location in 2013. They currently have grades 1 to 3 French, and Woodland has grades 4 to 8 French. The program started there in 2009. So now there's more space at Woodland to house more French immersion as enrollment hasn't rebounded to the numbers that we were seeing prior to COVID there. So as with all our schools, we'll continue to monitor on an annual basis to determine if any future need is needed. But the next page in the agenda package after the maps is an outline of the timelines. This is what we use for making changes to primary dual tracks and French grade structures. So there's the implementation and the communication on this page. So the first thing we do, we'll meet with school councils and staff, and then a letter is provided to parents at the schools. And then communication continues in the new year, where we update our website, as well as that information about the changes provided at the French immersion information sessions that happen in January for the kindergarten students that are interested in joining the program for grade 1. And then in the spring of 2026, we'll bring back a formal report to this committee where we'll talk about the process and any feedback we received. And then the implementation for these schools would be either September 2026 or 27, depending on the school situation. So that's the conclusion of that.
Okay, thank you for the staff for providing this report. Trustees, are there any questions? Okay, so seeing and hearing none, so we move to next report. Proposed school boundary change. Before the committee is the proposed school boundary change report. It's here for our information. The chair recognized the Associate Director Vidya Maharaj and Senior Manager Don Adam to present this report.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, again, Trina Sprayson will present this report. She is outlining the boundary changes that we are starting to work on this year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. Through you, Chair. So this proposed boundary changes, it's the beginning of some of these proposals. So this is also an annual report that we bring to the Lucy Committee to outline upcoming boundary changes where we're going to embark on a boundary change process. So if you go to the appendix on page 57, we have some information about the areas that we're going to be looking at for proposed boundary changes. So the first map in the report, it has the current boundaries for Richmond Green and King City. And these two areas we're looking at because we're going to be opening the new Dr. Betty Stevenson Secondary School, proposed to open September 2027. So we need to create an attendance area or a boundary for this school for the new opening. Dr. Betty's going to open with grades 9 and 10, and we typically open a new high school with just grades 9 and 10, which will grow to grade 12 by 2029. So that's just a little bit of background information on that proposal. And then the next page talks about the timelines for the process. So we're going to start meeting with school councils and staff in the new year, and a formal boundary process. We hold a public meeting as well. That's in winter 2026. And then following feedback and information from that, we bring a formal report back to Lucy in spring 2026 that has recommendations for the boundary. And then if approved, the boundary would be effective September 2027, the same as the opening for Dr. Betty Stevenson. And this would be in advance of the course selection and staffing that occurs in the 2026-27 school year. The next page is just a very minor boundary alignment that we're looking at for September 2026. It's Dr. Roberta Bondar and Forest Run. So there's a small area in the Forest Run boundary which doesn't flow very easily to the south because Grand Trunk Avenue's not completed through that area. So we would look at potentially attaching that to Dr. Roberta Bondar. The next page outlines timelines for a minor boundary process. So minor boundary processes are a little bit different than the other one I just described for the Dr. Betty boundary. So because there's an impact on less than 25 students, it follows a different process, which no public meeting is required, but the school administrator does let their school council know, and then students will also be communicated with directly about the change. So again, we'll come back in spring 2026 with a formal report to this committee with the recommendation for the minor boundary change. And that would be effective September 2026 if approved.
Yeah, thank you for providing this report. Trustees, are there any questions? Okay, so the chair recognizes Trustee Butterworth to ask question.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Just curious, so I'm looking at the boundaries for the new secondary school. So kids are currently, or students are currently at King City and Richmond Green. And you say this is for students in grades 9 and 10. So if students are in grade 9 at either King City or Richmond Green, can they choose to stay there even though the new secondary school might be within their boundary, or do they have to, like, have we made, concessions for that, or no?
Yeah, so typically when we open a new secondary school, we need to have a viable student body.
Mm-hmm.
So we bring over incoming new grade 9s plus existing grade 9s who become the grade 10s, and they're expected that they move because we need that viable population for the school.
Follow-up, Chair?
Okay, thank you.
So then if they choose to say they're considered as a transfer student and would have to go through that process?
They would have to apply for a transfer.
Got you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So any other trustee have any questions? Okay, so seeing and hearing none, so we move to next report. Secondary school closed to transfers and enrollment cap school for 2026 to 2027. Before the committee is a secondary school closed to transfers and enrollment cap school for 2026 to 2027 report. Is here for our information. So the chair recognized the Associate Director Vidya Maharaj and Senior Manager Don Allen to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, Trina Sprayton and I are going to take a tag team approach on this. I will start with the enrollment cap secondary schools. For the current school year 25-26, we have 3 enrollment cap schools. We have Bayview Secondary, we have Milliken, I've just gone blank, Markville, sorry, Secondary School, and Unionville High School. We're pleased to announce for the 26-27 school year that we will only have Bayview. Markville and Unionville will both be opening up to, or having the cap removed, but we will still be maintaining the school transfer, or close to transfers. Bayview will maintain the cap. We are also, though, returning a holding area of new development along Major Mackenzie, closer to Highway 404, back from Alexandra Mackenzie back to Bayview Secondary School. That's located in with the Bayview Secondary School. So there is movement happening, but we still need to maintain that cap. Trina is going to take you through the schools and the changes that we have for the 26-27 schools closed to transfers. Go ahead.
Thanks, Dawn. So this is also an annual report that we bring to Lucy to prepare for the upcoming school year. So closing a school to student transfers from outside the school's attendance area, it's one of the major steps that we implement to address over-enrollment at a secondary school. So we typically look at schools that have a utilization nearing or 100 or over 115%. Secondary schools can operate over 100% utilization if they're on a 5-period day, but generally when a school utilization rate approaches 115% or more, scheduling classes can get challenging to fit into the building and the portables if they have those on site. So for the 26-27 school year, there's going to be 3 changes to secondary schools' status for open or closed to new transfer requests. So one of the changes is going to be Milliken Mills High School. So this one would be closed to transfers from outside the school's attendance area. There's been a lot of large enrollment increases happening at the school since 2021. They have 4 portables on the site. The school utilization is 133%, which is significant. And the site is also very constrained as to where we can put additional portables, if any. So we're looking at a close to transfer status for September 2026. Another change we're looking at is Richmond Green. So this would be an open to transfers from outside the boundary. It has been closed to transfers for 2 years due to growing enrollment. It was closed because we couldn't add portables to the site and it was difficult to move to a 5-period day. So we had to close them to transfers. And initially the plan was to keep the school closed until the new Dr. Betty opened in September 2027, which some of the students from the Richmond Green attendance area are part of the proposed boundary for Dr. Betty. However, the enrollment has softened more, so we are able to open Richmond Green secondary schools to transfers 1 year early for September 2026. And then the third change that we're looking at is Tommy Douglas. So the current enrollment is approximately 1,500. The school utilization is about 101% without the portables that are on site. And so that meets the threshold. They're well below the 115%. So we want to open those, open the grade 9 to transfers, see how that enrollment goes once we open it. So students currently attending these schools who live outside the attendance area, in terms of Milliken Mills, we're not asking people to move out, so this is only applicable to the new transfer requests that would happen in 2026. And as part of the communication of this information, the board's website will be updated with the information, and schools will also be provided with a letter they can share with students and families. And that's it for the secondary schools close to transfers.
Happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you, staff, for providing this report. Trustees, are there any questions? So the chair recognizes Trustee Mamoon to ask question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I'm looking at this chart, Appendix A, right? So Maple High, for example, showing in the column which says utilization excluding portables, right? We are at 123%. And we are accepting the transfers there, right?
Yes, through you, Chair. So they're 123%, that's without their portables. So the 5 portables, they're able to accommodate that enrollment that's over the building capacity. And their enrollment's been kind of stable and projected to be stable. So we don't have concerns that, you know, we're going to be put into a situation where we can't accommodate students.
If I could just add to that, you'll see in the column under rationale, we're monitoring it. It's also an area around the Vaughan Metro Center that there is significant development. So it's a site that, due to that we're going to monitor on an annual basis.
Thank you. So Madam Chair, just as a follow-up, similar pattern on Tommy Douglas, so I can see that, you know, our utilization, so that's why we open up grade 9 at least, because now I think we have a big cohort, grade 12 is passing out, or did, but our utilization 101%, so I understand there are some portables on the site, so would they remain on the site for future in potential, or they will be moved somewhere for now?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So there's a 6-pack of portables. So we don't have any plans to move that. Moving a 6-pack is a more significant move than a couple singles. So we are going to leave it there. And then if the enrollment grows, they won't have any issue accommodating those students. But again, we'll be monitoring the enrollment on an annual basis to see if you know, things change and we need to make a change in the future. But we think for a few years we'll be okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So any other trustee have any questions? Okay, so thank you so much. So seeing and hearing, no any trustee have any other questions. So we will move to next agenda item. Yeah, thank you, staff. So date of next meeting. The next Learning Equity Wellbeing Standing Committee meeting is on January 13, 2026. Adjournment. So as there are no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. Thank you.